I was hit by a car and injured in the head. The doctor said I might develop amnesia. Jokingly, I asked who the girl keeping watch by my bedside was. She paused for a moment and said we were just ordinary friends. Bullshit. You're so damn cute. I can already see you as my future wife. I cursed. Then, without hesitation, dropped to one knee and said, "Beautiful lady, please grant me a ticket into your life." Chapter 1. I opened my eyes, and it took a long while for my blurry vision to focus on the stark white ceiling. My head throbbed with dull pain. Waves of dizziness crashing through me. "You're awake. How do you feel?" A figure in a white coat entered my sight, his voice sounding as if muffled behind a thin wall. I opened my mouth, but my throat was so dry no sound came out. He checked my pupils while a nurse beside him recorded notes. Concussion. Rather severe. The CT shows slight bleeding. Pressing against the hippocampus. The doctor's words floated into my ears, broken and intermittent. Later you may experience partial memory loss, that is, amnesia. The severity is uncertain. Needs observation. Amnesia. Something so dramatic. I tried to force a smile, but even my facial muscles felt stiff. My eyes struggled to shift, finally landing on the other side of the hospital bed. There sat a girl. Sunlight from the window traced the outline of her profile. Soft strands of hair hung beside her ear. Her eyes were large, and now filled with obvious anxiety and exhaustion. Her eyes were a little red, as if she had cried. She was quiet, but her tightly clenched hands on her knees betrayed her nervousness. Beautiful. That word drifted instinctively through my mind. An inexplicable, overwhelming sense of familiarity and closeness surged up inside me, stronger than the pain. I licked my cracked lips, rasped in a hoarse voice, almost on instinct, making a joke. "Doctor." Then I have to ask, this fairy who has been guarding my bed, who is she? The girl's head snapped up, looking at me with eyes tangled in a mess of emotions, concern, worry, some deep pain, and a trace of avoidance I couldn't understand. She hesitated, her voice soft but striking like a tiny nail in my heart. "We are just ordinary friends." Bullshit. The words burst out almost instantly. Even if my brain was broken, some instincts were frighteningly intact. Seeing her trying to draw lines while obviously caring, a strong impulse took over me. A girl this adorable, there was no way she was just a stranger to me. I had no idea where the strength or impulse came from, but I suddenly threw back the blanket, ignoring the fierce dizziness and the soreness in my arm. I swung myself out of bed. Without a second thought, I dropped to one knee on the cold floor, making the floor stand crash loudly. I grabbed her trembling hand from her lap, looking up into her widened, startled eyes. "Beautiful lady." I heard myself speak in that mix of roguish yet deadly serious tone. "Don't fool me. You're way too cute. You're clearly my future wife. Please, give me a ticket into your life." Her face flushed red at visible speed. Her fingers in my grasp stiffened like twigs, and her eyes instantly filled with thicker tears, like being burned. She yanked her hand away, sprang to her feet, the chair legs screeching harshly against the floor. "George, you're spouting nonsense. You need to rest properly." Her voice trembled faintly, her tone flustered and rigid. "The doctor said you need peace and quiet. I'll call the nurse to check on you." She nearly fled, footsteps stumbling as she rushed out of the ward, leaving behind a hurried silhouette and a faint fragrance in the air that made my chest ache. Clutching my pounding head, the pain now even worse, I stupidly knelt there, staring at the empty doorway. Wow, even her fleeing back looked beautiful. So beautiful, so beautiful, so beautiful, so beautiful. He. The doctor beside me leaned down in puzzlement and asked, "Is his IQ fine? Why is he grinning like an idiot?" Chapter 2. The smell of the hospital suffocated me. A nurse came over to run some more tests and gave me a long list of instructions, including the possibility of memory confusion and loss. I listened absent-mindedly, my head filled with the image of that girl's retreating back, her reddened eyes when she called me an ordinary friend. My phone had been smashed to pieces in the accident. The nurse said they were trying to fix it, but chances were slim. I felt like a drifting bottle thrown into a foreign sea, without any coordinates. By the afternoon, I couldn't stay put anymore. My future wife had already run away. What was I still doing here? Taking advantage of a shift change, I yanked the needle out of my hand, changed back into my own wrinkled clothes, still stained with spots of blood and dust, and quietly slipped out of the hospital. Standing at the side of the bustling street, the sunlight felt harsh and blinding. Where should I go? I didn't know where my home was, or even if I had a home in the city. That girl, what was her name? I hadn't even had time to ask. My mind was blank, but my feet seemed to move with a will of their own. I walked aimlessly, crossing several streets, turning into an old residential neighborhood. The buildings looked aged, their walls peeling, but still reasonably clean. I stopped in front of the entrance to Building 3. A strange feeling pulled me. This was the place, as if I had been walking forever, just to return here. Just as I stood staring at the entrance, trying to dig some clue out of my blank mind, a sudden uproar erupted from upstairs, angry shouting, loud banging on a door. "Willow, you damn girl, open the door. I know you're in there, hiding from me. Huh? Think you've grown some wings?" A hoarse, greasy male voice, punctuated by violent pounding on a metal door. The sound made my heart jump. Willow. My chest tightened, and instinctively, I knew that was her name. Willow, such a beautiful name. Heh. But hearing it spat out so foully ignited a blaze of anger in me. The banging echoed like hammers against my temples, and my headache flared. I rushed upstairs in a few strides. A slovenly, overweight middle-aged man reeking of alcohol was hammering and kicking the door of Unit 402, spitting curses with every word. "Open up, give me money, I didn't raise you all these years for nothing. Useless girl." His face, his domineering stench, it sparked a visceral disgust and rage in me, one that felt disturbingly familiar. And hearing him call her useless girl made my eyes sting for reasons I couldn't explain. He had no right to call Willow that. "What the hell are you doing?" My voice barked out, hoarse but burning with fury I hadn't expected. The old scoundrel turned his head at the sound, and when his murky eyes fell on me, they lit up with a nauseating excitement, like a starving dog spotting a bone. Well, my good son-in-law, finally, you've come." He almost lunged at me, seizing my arm with shocking strength, his breath stinking of cigarettes and liquor spraying over my face. "Quick, talk some sense into that damn girl Willow. She won't even recognize her own father now. You're the promising one, come on. Give Dad some money. I'm short this week, just need a little to tide me over." Son-in-law. Dad. The word stabbed into my skull like an icy needle, triggering a surge of searing pain. I groaned, clutching my head as darkness clouded my vision. Broken, fragmented images flickered by, dirty faces, outstretched hands. Endless entanglements, disgust, rage, helplessness. I doubled over in pain, breathing hard. The old scoundrel took the chance to slip his other hand into my jacket pocket, pulling out my wallet. With practiced ease, he opened it, snatched every last bill of cash, stuffed them into his own pocket, then tossed the empty wallet back at me. "Good son-in-law, knew you'd be filial. Dad will visit you again next time." Grinning, he patted his bulging pocket, then staggered away, humming a filthy tune. No longer bothering to pound on the door, I collapsed onto the cold stairwell steps, leaning against the wall, gasping for breath as cold sweat drenched my back. The headache eased a little, but the nausea and anger clung to me. The wallet had fallen to the floor, its cards and ID scattered across the ground. What was my connection with them? I didn't know how long I sat there, until dusk fell. The stairwell light was broken, leaving the place in shadow. I struggled to my feet, stuffed the scattered items back into the wallet, and staggered downstairs. I had no idea where to go, only a raw instinct not to stray too far, because that girl, Willow, might come back. I wandered the neighborhood like a lost soul. At last, I crouched under a dim street lamp. By its weak glow, I blankly watched a few ants struggling to carry off a crumb of biscuit someone had dropped. My head felt hollow, yet heavy, crammed with fragments I couldn't piece together. Chapter 3. George. A voice choked with sobs and urgency jolted me out of my daze. I looked up. Willow was standing not far away. Out of breath, pale, her eyes rimmed red, she looked like she'd run a long way. "Willow, don't let her cry." That sentence popped into my head all of a sudden. She saw me crouched there, stupidly counting ants, and first let out a huge, relieved breath, then her face flared up with anger. She hurried over, her voice trembling. "Are you insane? How could you run out of the hospital? The doctor said you could be in danger at any time. I nearly went crazy when I got the call. Do you know how many places I looked?" She was furious, but her eyes were badly red. She was holding back tears with obvious effort. Something inside me softened and stung at the same time. I tilted my head back and mumbled softly. "The hospital smells awful, my head hurts. If your head hurts, you should stay in the hospital all the more." Her tone was firm as she reached out to pull me. "Come on, we're going back right now." "I'm not going back." I yanked my hand away like a stubborn kid. "I'd rather die than go back. That place makes me sick." "You," she stamped her foot in anger. "Why are you so disobedient?" Just then my eyes fell on the keychain that had slipped from her pocket and was clutched in her hand because she was so worked up. In a flash, without knowing where the quickness came from, I leapt up and snatched the keys away. "What are you doing? Give them back," she cried in shock and reached to grab them. Using my height to advantage, I held the keys up and saw a small, fluffy sunflower key fob dangling from them. An indescribable familiarity crawled into my chest. I absolutely knew Willow, and not in a casual way. Ignoring her exclamations and attempts to snatch them back, I bolted for the apartment door, staggering up the stairs 2 steps at a time despite the dizziness. and, by some muscle memory, stopped exactly in front of a door. I shoved it open, slipped inside, and immediately shut it behind me. "George, open the door. Come out." She banged on the door, her voice cracking between sobs and anger. I leaned against the door, my heart drumming, the headache raging again from the exertion. I looked around. It was a small living room but unusually tidy and cozy. My brain, faster than my eyes, started filling in how everything should be arranged. Beige sofa, warm-toned curtains, a small potted plant on the table. Yes, 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 she picked it. I propped my head up. My mind was a blur, but the evidence kept adding up. I knew Willow n times over. The faint, clean scent in the room matched the one on her, and it made me feel suddenly a little slimmer. "You're not opening. Fine. I'll call the police," she shouted from outside. I caught my breath, then, guided by body memory, crawled instinctively under the dining table. Strange, why did I want to crawl under the table, and why am I so good at it? I thought, feeling a chill of unease. The table was small. I was cramped but hidden. "Call them then," I said in a muffled voice from under the table. "Let the police come and take me away. I'm not going back to the hospital. I'm not going out either. I'll stay right here." Silence fell outside for a moment. Then I heard a key slide into the lock. She had a spare. The door opened. Her footsteps came in and stopped by the dining table. I could see her jeans and a pair of white canvas shoes. She crouched, lifted the edge of the tablecloth, and looked at me curled up inside. Her expression was tangled, angry, helpless, worried, tired, and maybe, though I might be imagining it, moved. "Come out," she said it, softer now but still firm. "No." I hugged my knees and buried my head. "Unless you promise I can stay, I have nowhere else to go. My phone's broken. I don't know anyone. My head hurts. Don't send me away. Don't send me back to the hospital, please." I heard her inhale very softly, like she was utterly helpless. A long silence. Only our breathing crossed in the quiet little room. Finally I heard her let out a tiny, nearly inaudible sigh. "Okay." Her voice was thick with exhaustion, and it made my heart ache a little. "You can come out. You can stay, for now, but I have to see your injuries. If things aren't good, you must go back to the hospital immediately." Relief flooded me, huge and indescribable, chasing away the headache and unease. Like a big dog granted a pardon, I clumsily crawled out from under the table, a bit of dust in my hair, and looked up to give her what might have been a silly grin. "Thanks, Willow." It was the first time I'd said her name aloud. It tasted strangely sweet on my tongue. She paused, turned her face away so she wouldn't look at me, but I saw the tips of her ears go faintly red. She turned to fetch a medicine kit, still speaking in that hard tone. "You're only temporarily staying. Once you feel better, or remember enough, you have to leave." I knew she was putting on a brave front, just like I knew we could never be just ordinary friends. Don't think I didn't notice all the men's things in her house, although she had a whole set of explanations for this. The underwear in the closet, such a magnificent size, was obviously mine. The evidence of the deep connection between us had just increased by n squared. Chapter 4. My temporary lodging began like this. Willow set up a bed for me on the sofa. She insisted that she would sleep on the sofa and I would take the bed. But I countered that reasoning with the excuse that my head was injured and I needed a soft surface, and with the fact that she had to work the next day and needed a good rest. Both arguments silenced her. The next morning, Willow gave me 1,001 reminders. "Stay home and rest. Don't go anywhere. There's food in the fridge. If you're thirsty, boil some water and drink it." Her expression was stern, like she was scolding a big child who didn't know how to take care of himself. I nodded repeatedly, pretending to be absolutely obedient. As soon as she closed the door, the appearance of good behavior vanished from my face. "Stay home. Impossible." My blank mind and the heart that beat for her clamored loudly for answers. The more she avoided the subject, the more urgent it became for me to know what truly tied us together. That shameless guy, that inexplicable sense of familiarity, everything pecked at my soul like a hook. I looked through the peephole and, once I confirmed she had left, I darted out like a husky just freed, pulling on the t-shirt that still smelled of sweat and hadn't been washed. I hated the smell, but I didn't care. I grabbed the keys and slipped out. In the courtyard of the neighborhood stood some old acacia trees providing plenty of shade. Beneath them were stone tables and benches, the natural gathering place of the elderly. At that moment, several grandpas were fanning themselves, some playing chess, others watching the matches, and a few just chatting for the fun of it. That was where I found them. I began to circle around them as if I were a patrolling guard. The sun blazed down. Within minutes I was drenched in sweat. My t-shirt stuck to my back. I pretended to stroll slowly, coughed a couple of times, or stared for a long time at a non-existent branch, trying to draw their attention. Most of them were absorbed in the game or had their eyes closed to rest. No one wanted to bother with a strange passerby like me. When I was nearly ready to give up and felt like I was about to roast in the sun, One grandpa with a receding hairline, wearing a white t-shirt and fanning himself, kept glancing at me. He put on his magnifying glasses, examined me carefully, and exclaimed, "Hey." Suddenly he pointed his fan at me. "Isn't that George, it really is you, boy. What are you doing hanging around here all sweaty? Move aside. Don't go ruining my game, Geo." He knew me. My eyes lit up as if I had seen a savior, and I ran toward him with enthusiasm. Not caring about seeming unpleasant, I planted myself beside the stone bench at his side, my face flushed and full of flattery. "Grandpa, such sharp eyes. It's me, Geo." I quickly jumped into the conversation, lowering my voice and putting on a mysterious air. "Hey, Grandpa, one thing, the girl from 402, Willow, do you know her?" The grandpa, with a disdainful gesture, waved his fan at me. Go on, you reek of sweat. Did the couple have a fight? Did she throw you out? No wonder you look so lost around here. Couple. What juicy information." Inside I was ecstatic, but I held back and kept up my serious questioning, turning into a handsome melancholic. Don't mention that. I had an accident. My head is confused. I've lost memory of many things. I only remember that Willow is beautiful and kind, but she insists we're just friends. "Grandpa, can you tell me what our relationship used to be?" The grandpa looked me up and down with suspicion and said, "Did you go half-witted? Weren't you her boyfriend? You live in her house, eat and sleep there for free. What else could it be?" Boom. The huge stone crushing my chest finally fell to the ground. Of course. I knew it. My damned and infallible intuition is never wrong. A human witness. This was irrefutable proof. Another piece of evidence. The corners of my mouth curled up uncontrollably. I broke into a stupid, utterly idiotic grin, but the joy lasted only 2 seconds, and an even greater doubt sprang up immediately. Then, why does she say she doesn't know me? The grandpa pursed his lips and took a sip from his clay mug. "How should I know about young people's entanglements? Maybe you gave her a reason to be angry." I scratched my head and switched tactics. "Grandpa, another thing, isn't there some shameless old man, a pretty filthy guy who comes around to bother Willow? They say he's her father?" At those words, the grandpa's expression turned serious and he sighed. "Yes, that's Willow's father. That old Lou, he's no good. Poor Willow has had bad luck. Her mother died early. She worked hard, studied, and got a job. She moved here not long ago. Barely 2 years of peace before her father showed up. He drinks. He likes to gamble. He comes every few days to make a scene, demanding money. Who in the neighborhood doesn't know it? Poor Willow. She's such a good girl." Every word from the grandpa squeezed my heart like a hand, making it ache inside. The old man, looking at me with disdain, added, "And besides that father, poor Willow also has to support someone like you." He seemed to be searching for the right word. Without thinking, I answered, "Support me, that handsome, elegant, and imposing boyfriend." The grandpa rolled his eyes mercilessly. You're a kept man. You stay in her house, eat and sleep for free. You work on and off and never bring money home. Isn't Willow the one paying for both of you?" Damn. A kept man. I was speechless. Between the shock and a strange sense of pride, I stroked my chin with a bright look and muttered, "Wow, my future wife is amazing. She supports her father and me. 2 burdens. That's awesome." The grandpa was dumbfounded at my shamelessness. His fan slipped from his hand as he stared at me like I was some sort of oddity. Just as he was about to say another line to despise me, a sudden ferocious roar came from above, powerful enough to shatter mountains. "You damned old man, where do you think you're going? Did you wash the clothes I told you to wash? Or did you sneak off to watch chess again? Get back here right now." The sound was like thunder. Its force was immense. By almost automatic reflex, I leapt under the table beside the stone bench where the grandpa had been sitting. The movement was smooth and agile, as if I had practiced it 1,000 times. The grandpa, who had just lost his seat, was speechless. He looked at me, staring in disbelief at how naturally I had occupied his resting spot and viewing place. His mouth twisted into a grimace and, after a while, he said, "Well, boy, you sure know how to pick your hiding place." But that wasn't the end of it. Almost at the same time, from the entrance of the neighborhood came a woman's voice that made me tremble with fear, urgent, angry, and getting closer by the second. George, where did you go? Didn't I tell you to stay at home, George?" It was Willow. How had she come back early? It's over. A shiver ran through me. Instinctively I shrank down and squeezed myself further under the table. Willow, who had clearly been searching everywhere, scanned the shade under the trees like lightning, and in an instant spotted those long legs sticking out and the nape of a neck trying to hide. She charged in furiously, yanked up the tablecloth in one motion, and bending down, grabbed me by the ear and dragged me out from under the table in a single pull. I It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. Willow. Easy. My ear's going to fall off. I made faces begging for mercy, humiliated to the marrow. Didn't I tell you not to go out? Not to go out. Your head wound isn't healed. Are my words just wind to you? Her face was flaming with anger, but her eyes were a little glassy. She was clearly terrified for me. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I just got overwhelmed. I needed some air. I won't do it again. I won't. I stammered, protecting my ear, looking repentant. At the same time I made a pleading gesture to the grandpa with the receding hairline, asking him for help with my eyes. The grandpa, seeing me subdued by the one who runs the house, finally couldn't contain a chuckle and, fanning himself, commented mockingly, "Heh heh, well would you look at that, Gio, you've got a day too, you're afraid of the woman as well." He had just said that when, from above, another voice exploded with the same thunderous character, "You damned old man, where do you think you've been disappearing to? Did you wash the clothes I told you to wash, or did you go off to watch chess again? Get back here now." The voice was an electric shock. By reflex, I leapt under the table beside the grandpa's bench. The movement was smooth and agile, as if I'd practiced it 1,000 times. The grandpa, who had just lost his place, was dumbfounded to see me take it so naturally. His mouth twisted and, at last, he murmured, "Well, boy, what an eye you have for finding a spot." But things got worse, almost at the same time. From the entrance to the block came the female voice that scared me most, at first distant, then getting closer and angrier by the second. "George, George, where have you hidden? Didn't I tell you to stay home, George?" "It's Willow." How had she come back early? Willow approached with decisive steps, yanked up the tablecloth and pulled my ear so hard it hurt to the soul. I stayed there, red as a tomato, while she scolded me and the neighbors came out to watch the show. Then an older woman, nimble as a cat, appeared from the doorway and grabbed the grandpa with the receding hairline by the arm. She tugged his ear while scolding him without mercy. "Always gossiping. The clothes are rotting in the tub. Go back and wash them right now." The grandpa immediately shrank, letting himself be dragged, complaining, "Hey, hey, woman, easy, a little dignity, men." Before they shut the door, I looked at the grandpa who'd lost his seat. That exchanged glance was full of mutual compassion, recognition of the same misfortune, and a shared fear of an unpromising future. And then each of us was pulled in opposite directions by our furious wardens. "That's it. Now I'm really screwed," I thought, touching my burning ear. But, curiously, that sweet sensation that had sprung up upon confirming she was my girlfriend refused to leave for anything in the world. Heh heh. Willow is my girlfriend. Yes, my girlfriend. My girlfriend. Chapter 5. Although I was 99% sure about my relationship with Willow, she stubbornly refused to admit it and deliberately kept her distance. She finished her meals quickly and left the table. When we watched TV, she sat on the tiny stool farthest from me. When she talked to me, her eyes kept darting away, refusing to hold my gaze for long, but I could feel her care. She would quietly push the dishes I liked in front of me. At night she got up several times, moving quietly to check if I had a fever or felt unwell. She helped me sort the medicines the hospital prescribed and watched me swallow them. Feeling that obvious but unwilling to admit concern from her, I couldn't help but fret and posted online asking for help. What do I do if my wife doesn't recognize me? In less than 2 minutes the comment section blew up. Nobody gave useful advice. Instead they told me to kowtow to a durian, painful but expensive, basically mocking me with snide, gloating comments. Ha, 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 you actually have a wife. So there was no help there. I had to think of something myself. While nursing my injuries at home these past few days, I found what looked like one of my sticky note pads. Whoa, this handwriting's awful. Could this be written by a handsome guy like me? I didn't believe it, so I wrote a few words next to it. Okay, I believed it. Holding the tacky little pad with a hint of disdain, I skimmed the painfully obvious scribbles. Ring, roses, tea roses, balloons, that old scoundrel, what the hell is all this? I recognized all the words, but I couldn't remember why I'd written them. Especially that old scoundrel. The thought of him made a blind, hot anger surge up. I had no idea why I'd put his name on a sticky note. I used my supposedly brilliant brain to think it over for a long time. Then, unsurprisingly, I discovered my brain really had been banged up. It wasn't very brilliant at all. Damn it. I hope I don't remember which bastard hit me. Because of him, my wife didn't even recognize me. Although I didn't know what the sticky note was for, I felt in my gut it was important. So I secretly shoved it into my pocket. Then I immediately put together a meticulous, make my wife recognize me, plan. Of course, I wasn't going to kneel to a durian. My brain told me Willow hated durian stink, but typing on the keyboard might be worth a shot. Chapter 6. In the morning I heard Willow's alarm and the rustle of her getting up. I sprang up immediately and raced her into the tiny kitchen. "I'll make breakfast," I announced. Tying on the apron with the cartoon cat, she leaned against the doorframe, still sleepy, looking skeptical and distrustful. "You can't cook, don't set the kitchen on fire," she said. Realizing she'd almost said too much, she switched tone and shoved me into the kitchen. "Who are you looking down on?" I tried to recall how to cook, but my memory of anything culinary was blank. I decided to start with the simplest thing, frying an egg. Oil splattered everywhere. Eggshells dropped into the bowl, and in my fluster I knocked over the salt shaker. The final fried egg I served up was blackened like charcoal on one side and still runny on the other. She looked at that disastrous plate, then at the oil smudges on my face and the eager expression in my eyes, and finally couldn't help but let out a small laugh. A genuine, relieved kind of laugh with a little helplessness in it. "How many times have you done this? You're usually my helper, let me do it." She naturally took the spatula from me and gently pushed me out of the kitchen. "Go sit down, don't make a mess." Watching her move around the stove with practiced ease, listening to the pleasant sizzle from the pan, the hollow place inside me seemed to be filled a little. Such a familiar scene. Even when she deliberately put the perfect omelet in front of me with a stern face, I could see a tiny smile tucked at the corner of her eyes. Sigh. Plan step 1. Make breakfast for my wife. Ended in failure. Chapter 7. During the nights I stayed at Willow's place, I hardly slept a full night. The sofa was soft and the blanket she gave me still smelled of sunlight and her. It was unbearably cozy. But I kept tossing and turning like a pan-fried fish, feeling an empty space in my arms and a missing piece in my chest, restless and unable to fall asleep. One late night, staring at the ceiling after failing to sleep yet again, a thought came as clear as day. I must have slept holding her before. It had to be. Only that kind of tight embrace could fill this bone-deep void and the gnawing sense of insecurity. Once that idea formed, it spread like vines, tangling me up and making me even more anxious. Finally, after another restless toss, I gave in. I sat up, hugged my pillow and blanket like a thief of comfort, and tiptoed over to her bedroom door. My heart beat fast, like a little thief about to do something naughty. It's fine. It's fine. She's my wife. My own wife. I'm not a thief. I'm not a thief. I took a deep breath, forcing down the guilty jitters, and carefully reached for the cold metal doorknob to carry out my plan to sneak into bed. Just as my fingers were about to touch the metal, I heard a suppressed voice inside. It was Willow. She was on the phone. Her voice was low, threaded with a kind of restrained tremor and anger I'd never heard before. "Why are you calling again? I already sent this month's living expenses." She paused, apparently listening, her breathing quickening. "Gambling debt. You went to gamble again. How many times do I have to tell you he's not my father? I don't have a father like you." My heart dropped. It was that old no-good man. The person on the other end seemed to be yelling, and Willow's voice snapped a bit higher before she forced it down into a pained whisper. "Enough. Isn't the money I gave you enough? Did you ever take care of me? Where were you when my mom was sick? Where were you when I couldn't pay tuition? How dare you keep coming to me for money? Apart from giving birth to me, what have you ever done?" Her interrogation sounded like the whimper of a wounded animal, full of hurt and hatred, yet utterly helpless. She was even suppressing her voice, afraid I might hear from the next room. My hand on the doorknob fell to my side. My chest tightened so badly it felt hard to breathe. There was a short silence inside, only the sound of her broken, restrained breaths. Then the call was abruptly and roughly ended. What followed was a tiny, uncontrollable sob, like a needle piercing my eardrum and stabbing the softest part of my heart. But that cry lasted only a few seconds, really just a few, then stopped suddenly. In its place came the sound of her sniffling hard and the faint noise of a hand wiping away tears. At that exact moment my head flared with pain. A few blurred images slammed into my mind. Same home. The kitchen. She's cooking with her back to me, shoulders trembling slightly, quick to lift a hand to rub her eyes. Then she takes a deep breath, turns around, and with a perfectly natural, even slightly cheerful smile, offers a plate. "What are you dazing for? Dinner's ready. I made your favorite, sweet and sour ribs." Another time. She hangs up with red-rimmed eyes. Seeing my worried look, she immediately smiles and waves it off. "It's nothing, something got in my eye. Come watch this funny video." She was always like that. She'd give herself 2 seconds to break down, then slam on a brave mask, hiding all the pain and fragility, leaving only warmth and smiles for the person she cared about. I could vaguely recall that feeling, not a specific memory, but the pattern. She habitually hid her pain, just to show me sunshine. The ache in my chest spread, sour and unbearably aching. I withdrew my hand and quietly leaned against her door. "Willow, be strong. Don't go in." That voice appeared in my head. She certainly wouldn't want me to see her tear-stained eyes and fragile side. My barging in would only embarrass her and make things harder. In the end I didn't turn the knob, but I didn't leave either. I sat down right by the door, wrapped in the blanket, like a loyal, foolish watchdog keeping guard. At least that way I'd know the moment she needed me. The floor's cold seeped through the thin blanket and was uncomfortable. Yet listening to the quiet settle inside and to her breathing slowly steady itself, I felt strangely calm. Exhaustion and sleepiness finally hit me, and leaning against the door, I dozed off in a haze. The next morning I was woken by the sound of a door opening. The door swung inward and I lost my support, nearly face-planting. Willow was clearly startled by the big lump at the doorway and let out a small gasp. When she realized it was me, wrapped in a blanket, eyes half closed from sleep, she was stunned. "George?" She crouched down, looking at me in surprise. Why are you sleeping here?" She looked mostly the same as always, except for the faint puffiness and redness around her eyes, so subtle you'd miss it unless you looked closely. But she covered it well. Her tone only carried astonishment and confusion. "George, don't expose her." That sentence popped into my head. I rubbed my sore forehead and swallowed everything that wanted to spill out, the argument I'd overheard last night, her crying, the ache in my chest, down inside. So instead I grabbed her leg and buried my face in the softness of her pajamas, acting clingy and whiny with a sleepy rasp in my voice. "Willow, I'm scared. It's so dark to sleep alone. There are weird noises over by the sofa. I'm too afraid to sleep by myself." Her body stiffened as she tried to pull me off. "What are you talking about? There's no noise. Come on, get up, it's cold on the floor." I held on tighter and looked up with what I hoped was the most pitiful face I could muster. "Pushing my luck. Your room definitely doesn't have strange noises. And the bed is so big, could you give me a little space? Just a little. I promise I'll be good." Her cheeks flushed red and her voice hardened, with an edge of barely hidden fluster. "George, don't say that. We already said we're just ordinary friends. How can we sleep together? Get up now." I immediately clapped my hands over my ears and started acting like a brat. No, I'm not listening. Ordinary friends can still let a homeless kid crash on half a bed, right?" Seeing her both angry and helpless, I suddenly let go, scrambled to the kitchen, grabbed 2 chilled eggs from the fridge, and shoved them into her hands without ceremony. "Here." My tone grew a touch more serious as I glanced at her puffy eyes. "Put these on them, otherwise you'll look awful at work." She froze, looked down at the eggs, then shot me a panic-stricken, caught-off-guard look. While she was distracted, I slipped like an eel through the crack of the door into her room. My target was that unbelievably soft, inviting bed. I grabbed the comforter that still smelled like her and dove deep into it. I don't care. I'm exhausted. I barely slept last night. The floor hurts my back. I'm going to sleep now. Good night. I buried my face in the pillow and muttered loudly enough to be obvious while my heart hammered. From behind me came her exasperated voice. "George, get down from there. It's only morning. Why are you sleeping now? Get up." She shoved me a couple of times, but I really hadn't slept. And after the emotional roller coaster just now, the second I hit a genuinely comfortable bed with her scent and warmth, an overwhelming sleepiness crashed over me. Her shoves felt like tickles. My consciousness blurred. I mumbled a few half-coherent things and, gripping the blanket, fell into a deep sleep. In a fuzzy state I felt that the sulky energy in her had softened. After standing for a bit, I felt the mattress sink gently beside me. Then a thicker comforter was laid lightly over me, and the corner was tucked in with care. A cool, soft hand brushed my hair, so gentle, full of quiet affection and inner struggle. At last I heard a nearly inaudible, choked sigh full of helplessness, right by my ear. "George, can you stop being so good to me?" That sentence floated over the softest part of my heart and left a fine, stinging ache. I wanted to open my eyes and hold her, to tell her I simply wanted to be kind to her. George wanted to be good to Willow, for no reason at all, but my heavy eyelids and the tide of sleep swept over me, and all that escaped was a muffled murmur before I fell into a sweet, deep sleep. In the dream, I finally held the warmth I had been longing for, no longer empty. Chapter 8. Even though my "make my wife recognize me" plan had already failed once, I'm the kind of guy who, once decided, will keep going even if I have to crawl on my knees. Especially when it comes to my future wife, even if I have to kneel, I'll make her recognize me. So the next day, when Willow was leaving for work, I immediately followed her to the door like a tail. "I'll walk you." "No need. The bus is convenient." "Nope. I'm suffocating at home. I have to go." I'm going. She glared at me, but finally couldn't hold me off and relented, letting me tag along. Hey. Turns out my whining trick works a lot. On the crowded bus I instinctively lifted my arm to give her a little space, my arm hovering around her so no one would bump into her. She stood stiffly, head down, ears still flushed. At her company building she hurriedly said, "Okay, go back home now." But I watched the sunlight hit her face, saw the tiny hairs on her skin, and blurted out, "Willow, you're really beautiful, more beautiful than any flower in the sun." She froze, Then her face went tomato red. She stamped her foot in a fluster. What nonsense are you spouting now? Go home. And then she rushed into the building. I'm an honest man, I never spout nonsense. Watching her hurried silhouette, rubbing my throbbing head, my heart felt sweet, even without remembering the past. Praising her felt like instinct. Wife recognition plan. Step 2, perfect. Chapter 9. On many afternoons waking up at Willow's, sunlight seeped through the curtains and warmed my face. That earlier phrase, "Don't be so good to me," keeps flicking at the tip of my heart like a feather. Sweet and bitter at once. Before she left, she reminded me as usual. Stay home and rest. Take your medicine on time. Don't run off, the wound isn't healed yet. She kept her tone as flat as possible, but the concern in her eyes couldn't be concealed. I nodded like a pecking chick, grinning obediently. Got it, definitely won't run off. I'll wait for you. The moment the door closed, the obedient face fell off. A thought I'd been turning over rose uncontrollably. Where are my family? Since the accident and my memory loss, apart from Willow, no one claiming to be my family has shown up. My phone's broken. The past is blank. Are they not looking for me? Or, do they not know? Or worse, do they not care? Being forgotten by the world is a rotten feeling. I have to find out. So an hour later, I slipped out again. Just downstairs I bumped into that familiar receding hair grandpa, skulking out the gate with a stiff little shuffle, probably off to watch people play chess. We caught each other's eye and froze, then mutually gave a conspiratorial, guilty grin. Out for a walk, Grandpa. I went over and even kindly offered him an arm, helping him down the last few steps more steadily. You've got some eyes, kid, he grunted, not refusing. Out again. Aren't you afraid that girl of yours will come back and yank your ear? Shoo, keep it down, I whispered, looking around like a petty thief. Grandpa, straight question, you know where my home is, where I lived before I lost my memory? He stared at me like I'd grown another head. I've lived clean all my life. No records. I'm not the census official. How would I know where your house is? Great, useless question. After parting with the chest-bound grandpa, I stood at the community gate, lost. Where should I go? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to ignore the dull pain in my head, trying to clear my mind and let my feet pick a direction. Left, right, straight on. For some reason, going straight felt right. I walked aimlessly, through a noisy vegetable market and down a quiet tree-lined path. Headaches jabbed at me from time to time, like needles, and extremely blurry fragments of streets flashed by, guiding me to turn at one corner after another. I don't know how long I walked. When I finally stopped and looked up, I was stunned. In front of me stood a high-end residential complex that screamed expensive. Tight security at the gate, immaculate landscaping, imposing buildings. An inexplicable mix of familiarity and repulsion rose in my chest at once. Me, living in a place like this. Then why had I been staying at Willow's cozy, obviously ordinary, almost cramped, home? At the instant that question formed, a small voice in my heart gave me the answer, because she was there. Following that faint familiarity and residue of muscle memory, I found myself at the side entrance of one building, a fancy fingerprint lock. On impulse I pressed my finger to it. Beep, it chimed, and the door opened. At the same time, a growing wave of inexplicable disgust opened up inside me. I took the elevator and stopped at the door of a unit with a heavy security door. I tried the fingerprint reader again. Verification successful. The lock clicked open. I pushed the door and a cool, expensive scented air hit me. The interior was minimalist luxury, chic but lifeless, like a model home. In the living room a woman in a silk robe, well kept and perfectly made up, held a bone china cup and sipped tea with elegant composure. She lifted her eyes at me, then her brow drew tight. She put down the cup and spoke in a voice cold as marble. Oh, so you remember to come back, if you're here to invite me to your wedding. When she said wedding, the contempt in her tone was almost tangible. I think you should be realistic. I won't show up. Your father won't. Your sister won't either. Don't waste your breath, Mom. That word hit my skull with a sudden, violent headache. Yes, she was my mother, but the conversation, wedding, my wedding with Willow, we were already at the point of talking marriage. The avalanche of information left me momentarily stunned. Hearing her dismissive tone, some nameless anger instantly replaced my shock and confusion, and I blurted out, Willow is a good person. Whether you attend the wedding or not is up to you, but please don't belittle the woman I love. Ha. My mother sounded like she'd heard the joke of the century. For the first time the frozen expression on her face cracked, only into scorn. George, you're amazing. If there's one thing you haven't lost, it's your delusions and self-righteousness. Not one bit of my fine genes there. She stood and walked toward me, her gaze sharp as a blade. I might acknowledge you as my pathetic son in front of outsiders. Do you know how ashamed that makes me? Each word was an ice pick, driven into my ears and my heart. She didn't just look down on Willow, she despised me. I was almost rooted to the spot, my head buzzing. my mind blank. Then a flood of memory fragments crashed into me, shards, faces, voices. My parents staring at my report card with disappointment so fierce it was almost disgust. Look at your sister, always top of the class. And you, at the tail end. You've made the Wongs look bad. Don't play with those kids who do poorly, you'll become like them. Design. What kind of unrespectable thing is that? Do as you're told and go work at the company. George, why are you so stupid? My head felt like it was splitting apart. I clutched my head in agony and, like a reflex, looked for somewhere to hide, my gaze uncontrollably flicking to the heavy solid wood dining table in the living room. My mother snorted in contempt when she saw me, her disdain even sharper. What? Going to crawl under the table again like when you were a kid the moment you get scolded? George, can you ever improve? Apart from hiding and making us angry, what else can you do? Her voice drilled into my skull like a curse, making the pain spike until it felt like my head would explode. Just when I could barely stand it, when I felt like I might suffocate. George. An urgent, angry voice burst from the doorway. In the next second Willow came in like a gust of wind. She yanked me behind her and, though she wasn't very strong, planted herself firmly between me and my mother. She lifted her chin and met my mother's shocked, even colder stare without flinching. Her voice was clear and steady, edged with a rare sharpness. Auntie, may I ask what you consider excellent? Is it to obey your every command? To copy and paste your life into your perfect template until you become a soulless puppet who only follows orders? Do you know how much he sacrificed for his design dream? Do you know how many meaningful awards his designs have won? Did you know his design philosophy is to let ordinary people who can't afford sky-high housing, also have warm, comfortable, dignified homes? Isn't that more valuable than just flashing wealth and status? You're so focused on the Wong family's face that you never notice how truly bright he is. When she finished, her chest rose and fell with emotion, but she still stood straight and proud. Facing my mother, who had gone suddenly pale and stiff, Willow bowed politely and deeply. Sorry to have disturbed you. Then without another word she gripped my hand and, pulling me along despite my pounding head and dazed shock, strode out. She dragged me stumbling out of that cold, glamorous house, into the elevator, and down the stairs. The sunlight was blinding. I watched her walking ahead, so thin, yet so strong, so determined to bring me home. In that instant another buried memory broke free and slammed into me with clarity. It was one gray evening in high school. I held a report card, 50th in the whole school, an utter disgrace in my parents' eyes. After they scolded me harshly, they kicked me out of the house. Look at your sister, always number one. Why can't you make us proud? We Wongs don't raise trash like you. Get out. Don't come back until you figure yourself out. I walked the streets numb, cars slicing by. Life felt unbearably dull and crushing. Every effort seemed pointless, forever falling short of my parents' expectations. Watching the speeding cars, a dark thought even crossed my mind. Why not just step out in front of one of them? Hey, George, wouldn't it be easier if you just died? Hey, George, maybe you should just die. Die already. At the moment my foot was about to step off the curb, an angry voice from a nearby barbecue stall snapped me back. A greasy middle-aged man was shouting at a young girl, hurry up washing those skewers. Stop dawdling, how long do you plan to take? You're ruining my business. That girl was Willow. She kept her head down, her expression hidden, scrubbing those skewers with extra force, over and over. In the greasy basin, she mechanically and obstinately rinsed, changed the water, scrubbed. For some reason I just squatted on the curb and stared at her from a distance like an idiot. Back then I thought, what perseverance. Every day repeating the same greasy skewers. How does she keep going? I spent my days grinding through endless practice exams and felt like I was suffocating. I kept watching and watched until it went completely dark and the streetlights clicked on. She finally switched shifts with another girl and took a few crumpled bills from the boss. It wasn't much, but she counted them carefully, tucked them into her pocket, and a painfully weary yet radiant smile lit her face, like a little lamp in the night. She packed up and walked past me. Without warning she suddenly reached out and yanked me aside with all her strength. At almost the same moment a motorcycle, skidding on the wet road, careened through where I had been squatting and smashed hard into the roadside barrier with a screech. I froze, then collapsed onto the ground, my heart pounding. She let go of my arm, glanced at my still shaken face, frowning, but a little fierce in her tone. Hey, are you okay? Do you know it's dangerous to squat on the curb at night? I didn't answer, just stared at her. The streetlight etched her profile, sweat and fatigue on her skin, but a fierce vitality under it. She saw I was silent, pursed her lips, and didn't press further, then hurried off into the dark. I stood there like an idiot watching her decisive figure disappear, my heart beating erratically in my chest. So long ago, back when I was at my lowest, when I'd thought about giving up, she barreled into my life like a rude, blazing light and, without explanation, showed me what perseverance meant. She even, accidentally, saved my life. Shoo. George, don't tell anyone. Don't say you might have liked her back then. This is a secret. Willow doesn't know. That voice drifted through my head like a whisper. My heart jolted and a hot wave surged through me. I grabbed Willow's hand and stopped her. She turned, surprised. Her eyes were rimmed red from earlier excitement. George, what's up? Is your head hurting again? Hey, George, how are you? Didn't sleep well? Hey, George, did you skip dinner and just study? Hey, George, your designs are amazing. When I had thought of ending it all so many times, one person, using the same tones everyone else used, had spoken different words. I shook my head to clear the fog, looked into Willow's worried eyes, and said with burning certainty, Willow, you really are my future wife. That destiny had been set years ago, right by that barbecue stall. She had casually grabbed hold of the life that was about to fall apart. Willow froze, her pupils widening, then reflexively denied it. We're not. We're just ordinary friends. All right, ordinary friends. Yeah, right. I laughed and squeezed her hand back. Hey, George, where are you taking me? She asked. Home. But how did you know I was here? I checked the CCTV. When I heard, I got so mad I came right away. Didn't I tell you not to run off? Next time I'll send you straight back to the hospital. The next second she pretended to be angry and grabbed my ear. Ow, ow. Willow, that really hurts. I groaned. Shut up, you won't learn otherwise. Oh my God, my plan to get my wife to recognize me might have damaged my ears a little. Chapter 10. That night I curled up on the couch, watching her fold clothes beside me, and couldn't help asking, Willow, were we close before? She paused in her movements without looking up and said, just like that, what did I do for work before? You worked as a designer at a small company. Where did I live? You rented your own place. And that old deadbeat who hangs around the door, is he really your father? I asked the question that mattered most to me. Her face went pale in an instant. The fingers folding the clothes tightened until her knuckles whitened. After a long silence she finally whispered, yeah. Don't ask, George. The past, it wasn't good. She picked up the folded clothes and hurried back to the bedroom, shutting the door, and didn't come out for a long time. A weight settled in my chest. In that blank space there seemed to be a lot of things that hurt her, and I felt like I was part of that hurt too. Chapter 11. A few evenings later that nightmare of a voice rang out downstairs again. Willow, get your ass down here, or I'll smash the door. Willow's face drained of color. The book in her hand fell to the floor. She looked toward the door in fear, her body trembling slightly, a visceral, physical terror. Willow, don't be afraid. That sentence popped into my head and with it a familiar disgust and anger seized me. A headache hit, but stronger than that was the urge to protect her. I held her back as she reached for the lock and said in a low voice, don't move, I'll go. I walked to the door and flung it open. The old deadbeat was raising his hand to smash the door. When he saw me he wore that sickening, ingratiating leer. Good son-in-law, you're home. That's great. Come on, get out. I cut him off. My voice was so cold even I felt like a stranger to it. He froze for a moment, then tried to bluster. Who the hell are you telling to get out? I'm your father-in-law. It's only right I come for money from my daughter. She doesn't have money to give you. I stood in the doorway and looked at him with a cold gaze. She doesn't have you as a father. I'm not your son-in-law. If you hassle her again, I won't mind reminding you how to call the police. Maybe it was the sudden force in me, so different from my usual goofy self, that unsettled him. He was a little cowed, though he still spat and cursed. You ungrateful bastard. Forgot how you used to show respect. Now you pretend to have amnesia. Pfah. The past is the past. I stared at him. A sharp pain built in my head and hazy images churned up, me stuffing money into his hands over and over, the way he greedily counted it. Willow begging him through tears not to come back. Now, right now, get out. Don't make me say it a third time. Perhaps the hard edge in my eyes was too real. He spat on the ground, cursed a few nasty things, and finally staggered away. I shut the door and leaned my back against it, breathing out with exhaustion. Willow stood in the middle of the living room, shaken, staring at me with a complicated look, gratitude, worry, and a deeper unease. Did you remember something? She asked softly. I shook my head, walked over, and instinctively reached out to wrap her trembling body in my arms, patting her back. No, I just feel. I can't let him bully you. She stiffened for a moment but didn't push me away. After a long time I felt the fabric at my chest grow damp. She was crying, silently. After that day she became a little softer toward me, but the worry in her eyes deepened. She seemed to be constantly afraid of when I might get my memory back. And the desire to find out everything grew stronger and stronger. Chapter 12. One afternoon I tried to fix a slightly loose drawer in her bedroom. When I pulled it open, I noticed something tucked behind the drawer rail, hidden away. I carefully pried it out. It was a craft paper file envelope. On a whim I opened it. Inside was a thick stack of crumpled IOUs and debt collection notices. Most of the borrowers were Willow's scumbag father, but time and again my name appeared as guarantor or emergency contact. Amounts ranged from a few thousand to tens of thousands. The last one was a massive collection notice for $200,000, dated just before my accident. Something vaguely clicked in my head and I immediately went to look for my old phone that had been roughly repaired. After a lot of effort it finally turned on. My hands began to shake. I opened the phone with trembling fingers. The battery was low. I scrolled through the messages. There were countless threatening debt collection texts and Willow's chat logs. The last few messages were her pleading with me not to get involved with her father anymore. And my replies were, "Willow, don't be afraid. This account's messed up. I can sort it out. Wait for me to come back. I think this time I can settle it in one go. I'll be back soon. And I'll bring you something. You have to smile then. Please, please." A tidal wave of information crashed into my already chaotic mind. My head split. The blurry fragments began to whirl and collide and try to fit together. I was cornered by collectors on a street corner. They forced me to pay Lou's father's $200,000. I saw the interest calculation was wrong and argued with them. In the scuffle I was shoved out. The screech of brakes, a violent impact, the world going black. And earlier still, we'd been curled up on this little sofa watching a movie. I kissed the top of her head. We argued about her father's debts. She cried and said to break up so she wouldn't drag me down. And I held onto her, refusing to let go. I kept giving money to that deadbeat, buying only his temporary disappearance and Willow's brief peace. I remembered some things. The crushing debts, her father's shameless greed, the ferocity of the collectors. I also had a good idea why Willow always said we weren't together. She was ashamed that because of him I got hurt, and she wanted to use that as an excuse to push me away from the mud. But how could George do that? Staying with her is George's instinct, it has nothing to do with memory. Willow, you're a big fool, aren't you? That sentence echoed faintly in my head. It's okay, big fool. You have an unshakable lover. I collapsed to the floor, files scattered everywhere, the phone slipping from my limp hand. Tears burst out without warning, not from pain, but from the suffocating weight of the truth and from how achingly foolish and lovable her choice was. At the same time I was glad I'd remembered this crucial thing. I dug out that sticky note from my pocket. The words, "old deadbeat," on it clearly referred to this mess. Willow came home from work. When she opened the door I had already pulled myself together, made a simple dinner, and called out, "Big fool, come eat." "Ah, George, you've got nerve calling me big fool." Willow made a show of grabbing my ear. I grinned and offered my head. Be a devoted husband. Only by being devoted can you win a good wife. Chapter 13. A few days later, the door was pounded on violently again. This time, there were a few burly, fierce-looking men outside. That shameless old man, Father Lou, was hiding behind them, peeking furtively. "George, Willow, Lou, come out now. Are you going to pay or not?" shouted the scarred-faced man who led the group. Willow, though surprised they had come, immediately put me behind her. "Those bastards still haven't settled the accident matter. They think that finding someone to take the blame will do." Willow had already called the police a long time ago. When I recalled how the accident had started, I, surprisingly, remained very calm. "Willow, it's okay. I know how to handle this." I opened the door only a crack and stood ready to shield Willow with my body. "What's all this noise?" I asked them coldly. "We want the money," they answered. "That $200,000 debt, are you going to pay it or what?" "I remember the debt very well," I said. "That $200,000 is miscalculated. The way you charged interest exceeds the legal maximum. It's illegal usury," I added. "And the loan contract, with Father Lou's signature, who knows if it's authentic?" The scar-faced man was stunned. He clearly didn't expect me to bring up legal details so calmly. I kept pressing. "I've already consulted a lawyer and I have all the evidence. If you want to go the legal route, go ahead. But if you want to act violently right now," I showed the phone in my hand. The screen had the 112-110 dialer visible. "I won't hesitate to call the police and report violent collection tactics and a usurious loan." The men looked at one another. It was clear they were uneasy. They were only after collections. They didn't want things to escalate too far. Besides, my prior accident worked against them. The scar-faced man glared at Father Lou hiding behind them and spat. "You damned old man, are you pulling my leg? Didn't you say this kid is dumb?" Father Lou shrank back, frightened. In the end, the scar-faced man muttered, "You'll see," and left with his crew, grumbling. Father Lou tried to slip away, but I grabbed him at once. I stared him down, with not a shred of tolerance in my eyes. "Listen carefully. From today on, you and Willow have nothing to do with each other. She's not going to give you another cent. If I find out you bother her again, or if she has to suffer the same things those guys made you do today, I'll make you regret it more than they did." And that's not an empty threat. His biological fatherhood tied him to obligation and guilt, which was why he kept begging Willow for money again and again. Willow felt remorse. I did not. I only take care of her. Perhaps the hardness and determination in my gaze completely paralyzed him. He stammered, not daring even to utter a word, and slunk away with his tail between his legs. I shut the door. The world returned to calm. Willow stood in the middle of the living room, stunned, but there was a different light in her eyes. "Do you remember?" she stammered. She opened her mouth but could not form the words. She only looked at me with eyes full of tears. I shook my head. Honestly, no. I don't remember everything. Only a little. Just enough. Willow's eyes suddenly went red. Her voice broke. "I'm sorry, George. I'm sorry. I hurt you. I'm sorry. If it weren't for me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." She repeated it over and over, covering her face with her hands and sobbing uncontrollably. I hugged her tightly, pressing her trembling body against mine. "Willow, you're such a fool. You know that. Don't say you're sorry. You never have to apologize for me." She was a big fool. She undervalued herself in my heart, but it didn't matter. The fool's lover does not despise her. Chapter 14. Days passed, and the relationship between Willow and me grew increasingly delicate. I was almost 100% certain she was my girlfriend. We were incredibly close, maybe even at the stage of talking about marriage. From what my mom and the old man downstairs said, the puzzle pieces were snapping into place. But her, even though I'd told her I'd remembered part of things, she still dodged me a little. It seemed the accident left a pretty big shadow on her. Every time I tried to get close or probe with words, she'd raise her soft little defenses, once, twice, 3 times, the nth time. That night I lost again to her flickering eyes and firm denials. My chest felt blocked, a knot of unfairness and irritation I couldn't name. Oh man, getting my wife to acknowledge our relationship is way harder than I thought. I slunk downstairs like a wilted eggplant hit by frost, crestfallen. My head throbbed again, for her, and for this messy, tangled situation. Under the tree the Mediterranean old man was intently watching someone play chess, frowning as if witnessing the world championship. I squatted beside him, sighing and muttering like a prayer. What if my girlfriend won't admit we're a couple? "Old man, you're experienced, give me some advice." He was watching a key move, annoyed at being interrupted. He waved his palm fan and pushed me aside without taking his eyes off the board. "Shoo, don't block the light. Annoying. What's there that a husband and wife can't talk through? Pillow fights at night settle everything. You're about to get married, what's the fuss? You're just wasting my time watching chess." About to get married. Married. The word hit me like lightning, a second precise strike. When I first heard it from my mother I was stunned and felt indignant for her. But hearing it now from a bystander who knew part of the story felt completely different. An indescribable, enormous sourness and longing seized my heart in an instant. We were getting married. We originally were really going to get married. The headache hit violently, worse than any before. Countless blurry fragments slammed through my mind. The shame when I secretly measured her ring size. The seriousness when I tore across the city to shop for rings. The foolishness of practicing a proposal speech in front of the mirror, imagining the happy smile on her face when she put the ring on. Ugh. I groaned and clutched my head. No wonder that sticky note had the word ring on it. Not marriage. I was preparing to propose. A powerful, irresistible instinct surged through me. I jumped up and staggered back to the apartment building. Almost on muscle memory I rushed up the stairs, hands trembling as I opened the door. Inside, I headed straight for the dining table in the living room. Yes, the table. My mom used to tease that when I was scolded as a kid I'd crawl under the table, and in Willow's home this table was my safety zone. I practically dove to the floor and scrambled under the table on all fours, the familiar safety wrapped around me. But what mattered now was my fingers searching desperately along the underside. Where is it? Where is it? It has to be here. A totally safe spot she'd never touch but I could reach easily. My fingertips suddenly brushed something small, cool and hard, taped with clear adhesive, a tiny box. My heart stopped for a beat, trembling. I carefully pried it free and opened it. A diamond ring. Even in the dim light it threw off a fine, brilliant glint. Simple, elegant design. The center stone wasn't huge but was perfectly cut, surrounded by a halo of tiny diamonds like stars around the moon. How long had I saved for this? How many shops had I run to? With what anxious, excited feelings had I chosen it? Buzzing, it felt like a beehive had exploded in my head. More images flooded in, me holding her, imagining our future home. The light that flickered in her eyes when she glanced at bridal magazines. A light she'd hide because of worries about her father. Chapter 15. Just as I held that burning hot ring, my heart hammering so hard I could barely breathe, I heard a familiar sound downstairs, Willow greeting a neighbor. Then the key sliding into the lock. Click. The door opened. The living room light came on. Willow came in, exhausted, and automatically bent down to change her shoes. The moment she straightened up, I shot out from under the table so suddenly that I banged my forehead on the edge. I didn't even have time to feel the pain. I turned to face her, and without any hesitation, with a loud plop, I dropped to one knee. I raised the ring, clenched in my palm and nearly soaked with sweat. Now I know why I knelt so smoothly in the hospital last time. There was a reason for that. After all, Willow froze completely. Her bag slipped from her hand and thumped to the floor. Her eyes widened as she looked at me kneeling before her, at the ring. Her lips parted but no sound came out, only the violent rise and fall of her chest. Willow. The moment I spoke my voice went raw, choked with sobs I couldn't control. All the pent-up feelings, the terror of losing memory, the hurt when she pushed me away, the excitement of finding the ring, and that overwhelming, almost drowning love all turned into hot tears that sprang out without warning. I don't know what to say. I can't remember a lot of things. I cried and babbled. Tears blurred my vision so I could barely make out her face. God knows, this should have been a proper, solemn proposal, but I couldn't stop crying. But I remember this. I hid it really well, to take out when I wanted to spend my life with you. I wiped my tears hard, trying to see her. My voice broke as I spoke. I think I also bought flowers, prepared so many things, memorized so many words, but now I can't remember a single one. I'm sorry. I'm so stupid. But Willow, I drew a deep breath and used every ounce of strength to make my voice as clear as possible. I know what you're afraid of. I know what worries you. You're afraid your family will drag me down. You're afraid I'll regret it later. So you'd rather push me away, lie to me, lie to yourself, and say we're just ordinary friends. Willow's tears had long since fallen silently. She looked at me, shaking her head, lips trembling, about to say something but my words cut her off. No, that's not it, I cried, but forced a horribly awkward, tear-streaked smile. Whether we're ordinary friends, this, I pointed to my wildly beating heart, this knows best. It aches for you, it beats for you, it tells me it's you, and only you. I don't know how the old me loved you, but the me now loves you with everything I can think of. Marry me, Willow, will you? My hand holding the ring trembled with nervousness and excitement, as if I were holding my whole life and future. I promise I'll make up for the flowers I forgot, the sweet words I forgot. I'll make up a whole lot more than anyone else. Please don't push me away, I beg you. My tears burst the dam again, my voice almost a plea. Without you, I'm nowhere. I'm not a home anywhere. Willow was already sobbing uncontrollably. She looked at me, at the ring flashing under the light, at my face, a mess like a child but utterly sincere. Her taut shell, the barrier she'd kept up to protect herself and protect me, was utterly shattered by this most primitive, clumsy, and burning proposal. She finally let out an actual cry, apologizing in pieces, her voice broken. I shouldn't have lied to you. I shouldn't have said we weren't together. I was so scared. I was afraid my family would drag you down. I was afraid you'd be shunned for me. I was afraid you'd hate me later. You won't. Never. I interrupted her urgently, my gaze unshakably firm. None of that matters. Only you matter. Because Willow was a big fool. She still didn't know how much she meant to me until this moment. That weight had been accumulating for years, buried deep in my heart. So, dear Miss Willow, will you officially and forever give me a VIP ticket to your life? The duration is a lifetime. Willow listened to my clumsy confession, crying and laughing at once, tears streaming. She finally, trembling, extended her left hand to me. In that instant a massive, dizzying happiness and a sharp ache hit me at the same time. I gently, as if cradling a priceless treasure, took her cool fingers. Trembling, I slipped that ring, the symbol of promise and a new beginning, slowly and solemnly onto the base of her ring finger. It fit perfectly. The brilliant diamond sparkled on her slender finger. I held her hand tight, pressed it to my still heaving chest, tilted my head and looked at her, tears still streaming, and at last I let out a truly radiant, foolish smile. Willow looked from the ring on her finger to me, crying and laughing. She slowly crouched down to my level and squeezed my hand back with force. The room was warm and hushed, only the sound of our breaths slowing and the reflection of tears in each other's eyes. At that moment there was a commotion at the door. The old chess-loving neighbor was being dragged upstairs by his wife, ears yanked. Clearly he'd forgotten the time while watching the game. He grimaced in pain and, passing our open door, glanced in without thinking. He saw me still kneeling, holding Willow's hand tightly. Both of us had tearful eyes and the new ring on her finger glittered brilliantly. He froze for a moment, then, ignoring the tug on his ear, clicked his tongue and shook his head with a tone full of, I knew it, and a little schadenfreude. Look, this building's got another man who's afraid of his wife now. The words barely left his mouth before his wife yanked him harder. Don't you have the nerve to talk about others? Hurry up and go home and wash your feet. He squealed and was hauled away. Willow and I exchanged a look, stunned for a beat, then couldn't help but break into laughter through our tears. I stayed on my knees, holding her close, burying my face in her embrace and breathing in the comforting scent of her It felt like my long-wandering heart had finally found its home. My memories might have been blank, but the love had never left. Hey, the Big Fool's lover just got the Big Fool's VIP ticket. And that ticket's valid for a lifetime. Heh heh heh.